Diagrams. So at this point, the infographics that have been discussed are glances, graphs, maps, and now we're on to diagrams. So diagrams are unique in that they employ elements of several different components and pieces. So they employ elements of a glance in the way they organize, a chart in the way that they convey the information symbolically, a map because of that reality on a small scale, and illustrations. So the whole goal is to make complicated spatial or systematic concepts as understandable as possible. So two approaches, one is realistic and one is non-realistic. So with the realistic, basically what we want to do is eliminate those non-essential clutter that a photograph might contain so that the focus is on the key points. Non-realistic diagrams use symbols or images or imagery perspective to show these abstract relationships that a photo cannot show. So the key thing with these basically is that if it's real, photograph it. If it's abstract, illustrate it. If it is measurable, chart it. When we break diagrams down, we can break them into four main categories or functioning forms. Those would be depictions, schematics, instructionals, and cutaways. So a lot of these you are actually very familiar with. You just may not know or may not have known the correct term for them. A depiction is basically a map, so to speak. It depicts realistic systems in a very simplified fashion. We'll talk about these in more detail here in a minute. Schematics are charts or related to charts, and they depict abstract relationships symbolically. Instructions are sort of like a glance in that they highlight key elements of simple concrete relationships or procedures. And cutaways are really like an illustration where they are able to show inner workings that otherwise cannot be seen. So what do we have here when we talk about diagrams and some things that we should think about? So overall, diagrams are best suited for comparing the spatial or the hierarchical relationships. They highlight key components and interactions. They are not good for a literal depiction that could be done just with a photograph. So that's where we get back to the if it's real, just photograph it. They answer typically the questions how and what. They are often used as a secondary visual element, but sometimes they are the centerpieces. And typical size very much, they vary, but typically they're going to be a minimum of 4 inches wide, but potentially much, much wider. So if we look at challenges that we may face when we are designing or working with diagrams, it's creating those data metaphors and also simplifying the information. We should organize the information to convey a main point, that inverted hierarchy that we talk about. The non-essential facts and imagery should be avoided. So the key thing is using some of that visual vividness, but to simplify it. The key techniques that we're going to see when I show you these examples, you'll see a lot of drawing techniques, a lot of shading. Those that have the typography will be a big part of it. They may include pointer boxes, and of course utilizing that inverted pyramid.